Hi, I'm Chloë Sevigny, and this is My Life in Looks. Let the shame and regret begin. This was my first real runway show. I have a lot of memory of this day. My father and my mother came, and the show was, I think, at Bryant Park, and I remember taking like the subway back to downtown with them after. I can't remember if I opened or Kate opened. All I knew is that I was way out of my league. I was terrified. And Miucha, the kind, loving woman that she is, which a lot of people don't know, gave me a few practice runs and was very encouraging. I think growing up in the 90s, I never thought about like sex sells. Like it wasn't something that I was even trying to do in pictures. And I think that's so pervasive now. And so when I look back at photos of me in the 90s, I think it's very, innocent in a way. The next one. Okay, here we go. This was at the premiere of Trees Lounge. I'm wearing a vintage dress, some tights that I probably got at like Love Saves the Day, which was a vintage store on 2nd Avenue in East Village. The coat I'm sitting on was a Miu Miu coat that I think they gifted me. They were always very generous. And I'm wearing a corsage that I probably had made at like the Gramercy florist because I was obsessed with this film Streetwise. And there's a girl in the film Streetwise by Mary Ellen Mark who wears a corsage on like her winter jacket. And I just thought it was like the coolest accessory. And flowers are a big part of my life. Trees Lounge was my second film. I'd made kids. People were becoming interested in me as an actress. Somehow I ended up having an audition for Steve Buscemi for his directorial debut. And he wanted me to do all this improvising, and I was very shy. And I think he almost fired me. And I was like, don't worry. I know I'm failing you in this moment right now because I don't have the wherewithal to do this kind of improvisation, but when we get on set, I promise I'll deliver the goods. This is me at the Oscars. I was nominated for playing Lana Tisdale in Boys Don't Cry. I'm wearing an Albert Elbaz for Yves Saint Laurent and Bulgari bracelets. I remember though being very confused or feeling guilty that here I was draped in all this finery while the girl I portrayed was still back in Nebraska, having lost her loved ones. I knew that the photo would probably come up for the rest of my life, so I wanted to do something more timeless. The plunge is a little deep for me now, I have to admit, and I still own this gown. It's in storage, and I think I still own those satin Manolos. I see my little toe peeping out there. Those were my first pair of Manolos. Don't own any of the jewelry. I had to borrow it and give it back. Acting in Boys Don't Cry was, to me, it was like one of my greatest opportunities as an actress because the movie was talking about so many issues, still is, that I think need to be brought to the forefront and could hopefully expand people's minds. Okay. This was for Vogue by Annie Leibovitz in Helmut Lang, who I had become friends with through Ingrid Sishi. She was the editor of Interview magazine, and I miss her dearly. I just remember just being in awe of her studio and her as a personality and just thinking, wow, I can't believe I'm even here getting my photo taken by this person, this icon. And of course, I was in love with Helmut and everything he did. People really love this dress on Instagram. I've seen many memes around this dress. This is Marc Jacobs for Louis Vuitton. Super fun. This top is small. I think a lot of the times earlier on my career and I didn't have a stylist, I would see it on the runway and my publicist would call it in and I would just hope and pray that I fit into things. And oftentimes it would be like last minute and I'd have to just kind of wear something because I didn't have like somebody there with a rack of alternatives. So, but I think this works. This is cute. This is cute. It's a lot of boob, but I feel like I'm getting more comfortable here. I probably again did my own hair and makeup. Wish I had that body right now. Oh well, keep going. Okay, this outfit I got a lot of ridicule for. My friend Tara Subkoff designed a line called Imitation of Christ, which I had a lot to do with the genesis of. Our first show was in Los Angeles. I helped style and walk it. And then we had a show in New York at a funeral parlor and we're using all old clothes that were reconstructed. And I'm wearing some Nicolafer Balenciaga shoes, which I still have. It was raining. I'm wearing a raincoat, which is vintage YSL. The tea dress was some like 40s, whatever, vintage. And the Ray-Bans were what I got a lot of slack for. I got so much slack in like the Us Weeklies and the other tabloids that my manager, or maybe she was my agent at the time, And my publicist made a conference call to me to tell me that I had to stop wearing them because there was so much negative press around them and they were embarrassed for me. Here I am at one of my presentations for one of my collections that I collaborated with designing for opening ceremony, which was a store and brand in downtown New York. This was a collection called the 5 Dresses. So I made 5 different dress patterns in 5 different patterns. So if you like the shape of one dress, you could have it in 5 different patterns or colorways. I thought it was clever. It's my idea. I think I did 5 or 6 collaborations with them. I just said, I'm not sure I wanted to put any more product out into the world. I was really grappling with that, and I would have girls come up to me and be like, I saved all my money to get the shoes. I know that feeling and that desire, and I didn't know if I wanted to like feed into that so much. That being said, I still have done little capsule things with friends here and there, more as a way to help bring awareness to friends, brands. This is when I won my Golden Globe for my portrayal of Nikki in Big Love. This is a Valentino gown. It's a beautiful lavender hue. This photo doesn't do it any credit. And when I was walking up onto the stage to receive my award, the gentleman who escorts you up the steps stepped on my train and the whole train tore. And if you watch the video, you can hear me, oh, my dress, because I heard it tear behind me. I mean, Nikki was a character that I love and miss. And I think she was, the most complicated of the sister wives. She was bridging the gap between, the modern world and the world she had grown up on the compound with. I kind of think of it as a litmus test when people come up to me and be like, oh, that Nikki was such a bitch. And I was like, she was just very misunderstood. I think when I was offered this role, I had been living check to check and doing mostly indie work, and I was supporting my mother and myself. I think I just was kind of tired and was in my late 20s and I wanted to buy an apartment and I just wanted to have some more security. But it was a real choice then to do TV because it was very much like you were either on TV or you were in the movies. Here I am walking in front of St. Mark's Church. I actually lived on this block. This cute number over here was Jennifer Goodwin. She was on Big Love. She played Marge, and she was shooting a film on this block. I went to visit her because she was in my front yard. I'm wearing one of my favorite pairs of Levi's, some Chanel clogs, very fancy clogs that I think were a sample that somehow I hoodwinked them into giving me. Most of my luxury items were gifts. A vintage cramp shirts that I think I got at Metropolis, which was around the corner. Suspenders, did I need to be wearing them? Probably not. I think I had a tendency to over accessorize because I found myself not very interesting just on my own, so I would pile stuff on. It was just an ode to things that I loved. I loved the Gavin Watson Skins book. Since I was a teenager, I was very inspired by all those photos and punk and ska scene. So I think it was just a way of celebrating that history, kind of what they mean and the history of street style. This is when I started working with Haley Wollens, who I love and admire. And this was, I think, one of the last times I was invited to attend the Met Gala through the Looking Glass theme. And J.W. Anderson designed this beautiful garment from vintage fabrics for me. We were looking at silhouettes from his current collection. I remember then wanting to go out to the parties after and not being allowed to wear the jewelry. Thinking, oh, now my look is ruined. I feel like this really came together because of Haley's genius. And she's really made me feel so much more confident in my looks and my body and my style. And I think that's really what a great stylist can do, is help you kind of own yourself more. Still, if I'm going somewhere, she's not around, I'll send her a photo and she'll be like, oh, this shoe is cuter than that shoe, or something like that. She loves a pointy shoe. I'm more of a clod hopper because I'm a true alternative girl. But I'm trying to heed her advice. The next up. This dress came up recently. Olivia Rodrigo was wearing it in one of her Vogue videos. It was a gift from my dear friend Miriam Lang. When I turned 40, she had hauled it down to Mexico. I had my 40th birthday in Tulum with a handful of friends, like you do. It's pretty basic now, but then I guess it wasn't. It has a belt and jacket. I noticed that she wasn't wearing the belt, which I found odd because it's cute. Wearing some Miu Miu clodhoppers. Glasses, no idea. Smirk, terrible. It's just like an awful paparazzi shot. Here I am walking for Simone Rocha in London. I went over to be in the show. She said she was having real girls. I had first seen Simone. I saw like a sock with pearls, like a pantyhose with pearls. And I was like, who is making these pantyhose with pearls? Who is this person? Then I discovered her garments and fell in love with the world that she creates and the fantasy. I remember like walking with a slight smile, which is something I try to do. So I didn't look dour. I just wanted to look friendly. I feel like, like the young girls on the catwalk, they don't look that friendly. And I was like, I'm happy walking. Why should I look dour? Oh, this is my wedding day. I married my husband, Sanisha. We got married in Darien, Connecticut, where I grew up in a small church. And this is the reception, which was held at a park where I had done a lot of acid as a teenager. And I'm wearing a Glenn Martin's for Gaultier Couture custom gown, and Sanisha's wearing custom Bottega. I feel like wedding dresses are very hard. It's very hard to do something original. I did have 3 looks at my wedding. Why? I don't know. I feel like I spent half the wedding changing. Haley and I got together and we just thought about like who were our favorite designers right now, who could we approach. Glenn Martin's, and then JW made a dress that I wore in the middle at the reception, and Casey Cadwaller made a kind of catsuit for the after party. So I got 3 different flavors. I don't regret a thing, actually, and wish I could go back into it over and over again. This is me in Hollywood. I think we were on the Paramount lot shooting a Mugler video. I was squeezed into this one. It's real cinched, as they say. I remember being like, can I do this? They were having like Amber and Shalom and like all these older supermodels. And I was like, I don't know how I'm gonna do this. Like Bella Hadid, all these girls. I was like, well, I'm gonna look like a fool. But I knew the filmmakers would take care of me. I think I often also like that, like doing shoots with stylists or photographers who I'd really admire and letting them kind of project whatever they want to onto me. And my own personal style, I feel like, is kind of maintained. I feel like my hem lengths might be getting a little longer, but I think maybe it's time to transition to a little more subdued elegance. I feel like I don't need to like maybe pile it on as much as I used to, but I'm still like now in a gray cardigan, Mickey Mouse. So holding on to something. This is me as CZ Guest in the new season of Feud. CZ Guest was a famous socialite and style icon, and a lot of pressure to play someone who people hold in such high regard. And we tried to be as specific to her as possible, poring over research photos of her, and the costume designer was obsessed with accuracy and resourcing vintage looks from very specific shows that she knew aligned with the year and time period that we were filming specific scenes for. And it was just so great to give myself over to her and put all my trust in her and let her dress me like a little doll. And that was my life in looks. Thank you, Vogue.